across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening. It is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock as usual, and coming up at midnight is the phone in. And I did think about doing this for you last night or this morning, whatever, you know what I mean, midnight. But it's all over the papers today, so I did want to talk about it today. It's something I feel quite passionately about in the negative. Migrant curbs could mean digital IDs for all. So I've been looking at the number of countries in Europe, in the EU and the EEA that have ID cards, and most of them do. It's only Denmark and Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, that don't. So everybody else has ID cards. Doesn't seem to have curbed their immigration crises that much. So why it is that we're being told that it will for us, I don't know. Because already, if you go for a job, you have to show your passport. Even if they know that you're British, you still have to bring in your passport. So the idea that these companies that are hiring illegal migrants because they're cheap are suddenly not going to hire them because of an ID, because already they should be asking them for ID and their right to work, but they're not doing that. They're not doing that because they don't want to. So they won't ask for an ID either. I just think we're being sold an absolute lie with this, and it's very concerning because the amount of information that they want to put on these digital ID cards is too much, and it will grow and grow and grow and grow. And I don't trust any government with that much information on the individual. If you look at the way China controls its population, it is through ID cards and information, and they can then say, well, you were anti the Chinese government, so you can't move out of your village, you can't have any social climbing. And that'll happen with criminals or with people who they think are criminals, or people. I don't trust it. I just don't trust it. But you may believe that ID cards are the way, they are the only way to curb immigration. Are you prepared to give up your privacy for some supposed or perhaps even imagined security? Now, I'm being very clear where I stand on this, but you are so welcome to call me and tell me that I'm being paranoid. I'm really happy for you to do that. And if you do live in a country where you have to have ID cards or digital ID cards, have they worked brilliantly? Have they done the job? Have they worked out fantastically? I mean, the numbers of people still entering into Europe, and Germany, for example, they have ID cards. It hasn't stopped. The vast number, matching hours, of people who enter that country illegally. So I think it's a bit of a lie. You're very welcome to call me and tell me that I am wrong. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you straight back. And you can text to me, put the word talk, and then your message to 87222. I very much look forward to talking to you about this a little bit later on. Right, just to let you know what's coming up on the rest of the programme, we have the wonderful, I know he's a favourite of yours, John Boothman, a political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. He's going to join us to go through Thursday's front pages. Andy Lound, the lovely, our favourite spaceman, he's going to be here as well, talking us through all things stars and space. And Caroline Faraday will be joining us from LA, talking to us about stars of a different kind. So all of that is to come in the next 3 hours. But first, sort of following on really from my conversation with Angus Walker yesterday, was the sight and the sounds and the saber rattling really of this extraordinary Chinese military parade. My understanding is it is the biggest one they've ever thrown. It was so impressive. I mean, you can't knock it. It is one of the soldiers that they have. The precision. I mean, it made the American one just. I mean, what a joke. But this was extraordinary, and China, we know, does this really well. It was in Tiananmen Square, and it showed off a range of weapons that we've never seen before, and that's why I use the term saber rattling. There were a range of laser weapons, nuclear, ballistic missiles, and giant underwater drones. This parade was to mark the 80th anniversary of the formal surrender of the Japanese at the end of World War II. 26 heads of state attended the event, including, of course, Russia. We know that. Vladimir Putin was there, and North Korea's Kim Jong-un. US President Trump did not attend. I don't believe he was even invited, and posted on social media a message for Xi where he asked him to give his warmest regards to Putin and to Kim. As he stated, the two are conspiring against the United States. So he said, have a nice time, all three of you, as you conspire against me. So, it's uneasy at the world at the moment, but what was this? And was the timing of this just coincidental? Was it just that, oh, well, it was the 80th, but this means a heck of a lot more to this new alliance, this so-called axis of upheaval? Well, joining me now to discuss this and those weapons is Colonel Simon Diggins, OBE, retired British Colonel and Defence Analyst. Simon, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. This was extraordinary. I mean, it is awe-inspiring to watch the Chinese put on these displays, and I think that nobody, not even us, does it better.
Well, Petrie could even too. I'm going to challenge you on that last bit. I think our parades are magnificent, but they are different. They tend to be about ceremonial, often linked to royal ceremonial. This was very different. This was about royal power. It was about declaring that China was now not just a nominal great power, but as a great power, and that their future is brighter still. President Xi was very clear about that, that they have almost a limitless ambition to be the greatest power in the world. And he was demonstrating that they have the weapon system, the technology to do that. So yes, as you say, a most impressive parade, and weeks and weeks of rehearsals, you understand, by the armed forces of China in order to do that display.
I mean, every single move, it was like a ballet. It was so choreographed. I mean, stunning, actually, when you see people in unison respond in that way. But of course, this army, this military, may be, you know, only slightly just now second to the US, but it's really unpracticed. It's never really had to show its teeth in anger. Certainly not this lot.
No, but I mean, most armies are in a position where quite a lot of time they are training, and then they have to go to war, and there will always be a few people who have some idea of what's going to happen, and then others have to kind of learn as they go along, and people do that. So I can absolutely understand that at the moment, they're, as you say, untried and very large scale, but I wouldn't underestimate them for one moment. I think they'd learn very quickly.
Now, Xi made a point of saying, you know, we're showing strength, but we want peace. And he said the world has got to prepare for either war or peace now. We're on a precipice.
No, I think so. I mean, that's always the line, isn't it?
Yeah.
The line, you know, if you give us what we want and you've got peace, if not, we've got the means of doing something about it. And the target, the focus, is Taiwan. If you look at it, and it was very much interesting to say about why this anniversary. This is the 80th anniversary of the end of the Japanese War, all the horrors that China suffered during that war. But it marks very much a thing that didn't happen. I mean, the one thing that did not happen at the end of that war was a complete unification of China. There was a civil war, and Taiwan was the standout from that. So by holding the parade now and not on the more usual communist era anniversaries, he's making a statement saying this is the focus of what we're doing, and he's given his orders already to the PLA leadership that they must be prepared to seize Taiwan if it doesn't fall into their hands peacefully by 2027. So we've got 2 years of that. So this was clearly a marker, an indicator that effectively they are ready, and they will be ready for 2027, and we're all expected to absorb that and understand that.
And we do know, of course, it's a constitutional imperative that in the Chinese writings. You know, they think that we are going to do this. This is not a question of anything. We are doing it. Again, the timing. I mean, you know, you had this axis of upheaval, as it's being called. All of those world leaders that tend to make us all a bit scared and sleep less easy in our beds together in one place. I can't help but wonder if they see a weakened America. Look, I know America's got their military. It's one of the greatest militaries in the world. I would never decry the Americans' ability for war. But there is political uncertainty with Trump.
No, very much so. I mean, going back to the anniversary, what they were effectively declaring was that the post-war world is over. So whatever we've got used to in terms of the kind of so-called rules-based order, a world in which America effectively is the world's peacekeeper with its allies, that period is over. Certainly as far as the Chinese are concerned, Russia and Kim Jong-un with North Korea. So he's making a declaration of it. The fact we've also got at the moment a president in Trump who blows hot and cold. 1 minute he's shaking hands with Putin. He's talking about going back to talk to Kim Jong-un. He hasn't met President Xi properly yet. And then he says something, as he did on Truth Social, as you pointed out in your introduction, where effectively he said they're conspiring against us. You know, that does not help. But that, if you like, is off the moment and very much a detail at the moment. The really important thing to note is this almost this declaration that, you know, whatever you thought about the post-war world and everything that went with it, that is now finished. And that the future will be different. It will be basically dominated by the Chinese and what they see as their path to peace. And he made an appeal in his speech to what he still regards as sort of what we might call the global South, the people who they say are being ignored by the West and by America. So there is lots of potential for lots of change around the world. And he's saying, you know, what we had and what we called this international rule-based order is over. And I think that's the real challenge. But Trump, of course, does not help.
Not right now. But are we expecting any sort of official response, do you think, from Trump? I don't think he'll be able to resist it in a way.
Well, no, I think we've got the mood music, haven't we, with his post on Truth Social, which I mean is about as direct as you can get against those nations. I don't know whether he'll respond or he'll try and do something. When Vice President Medvedev made some choice remarks around the United States a few weeks ago, he deployed 2 nuclear submarines to closer to Russia to kind of make the point that they had the capability of responding if Russia was stupid enough to do something like launch a nuclear attack. There's no threat that came out from President Xi. He's talked in very general terms. So I doubt there'll be a direct response, certainly not an immediate response to that. On the other hand, we've got flotillas who are aiming to go through what the Chinese regard as their sea, the South China Sea. And that's something which may provoke a response on their behalf as well.
I don't know about you, but when I was looking at Xi, Putin, and then Kim, it felt to me like the headmaster had called a 3-line whip to 2 of his poodles, actually, because Russia absolutely could not continue the war without the money from China and without the support, although it's a bit rocky, from China. They try to ride both horses, don't they, China? But, you know, so Putin looked weakened, and so did Kim, because North Korea would not exist without China. I mean, in any way. Without China, and Xi looked like the global leader. He looked like the boss of that of that area. Is that a fair reading of that situation?
That's certainly the way I read it. I mean, I think nothing I think happens in those worlds without the choreographing is always immaculate, and the detail is there. So they appeared on the podium together, but they were not invited to review the troops, making it quite clear who was in charge. And I think you're absolutely correct about that in terms of the dependency now of Russia and North Korea on China, and therefore where that places China in this sort of hierarchy of the axis of upheaval.
Yeah, I mean, it was so obvious to me. It really was. When we're talking about China again and this new version of NATO that they want to pull together, I think they're going to call it the SCO. If there ever was a situation, and let's hope and pray that there isn't, but could NATO satisfactorily beat the SCO, if you like, this other access? Would they be trusted to play by the rules of war? And you've already got Turkey, who was there as well, who is part of NATO.
Yeah, I mean, Turkey has positioned itself, as always. I mean, geographically, of course, it sits on the junction of Asia and Europe, and it always positions itself to do that as well. I think the SCO as a military organisation is still very much in its infancy, but it is perhaps the emerging military alliance. They've looked at NATO, they looked at how strong NATO is. Clearly, they want something to match that. The alternative organisation is the one that's led by Russia, the CSTO, which also exists, which is based on their old CIS state. But that is perhaps now a weakening institution, and this Chinese-led organisation, the more positive institution from that. I think the combination, though, of NATO, the European Union, whatever, I think, I can't ever imagine a scenario when there's kind of, say, a sort of global clash on the scale of a sort of game of risk between them. But I think what we will see is pushing and shoving and attempts at either some land grabs or certainly influence grabs around the world. And I think we need to be prepared to deal with them at every level from potentially confronting at least a peer adversary at one level, to the old, if you like, the old NATO thing, through to dealing with a much wider range of threats we're facing, hybrid threats, attacks on our cyber infrastructure, and also the whole range of assassinations, and just influence peddling and everything that goes with that. Because I think that's the competition we're going to be in for a long time with them. At the same time, and this is why China is so complicated, we're also dealing with them in terms of the economy and everything that goes with that. So we really have got a very challenging strategic competitor who's also one of our major strategic economic partners. So in terms of how we handle that diplomatically, politically, we have a real challenge on our hands.
Just if we can, just talk me through a couple of these weapons that we saw today, because some of them were we hadn't seen before. We'd heard of the laser weapons, but there were some that we hadn't even heard. These are all Chinese made, and one of them is should be of particular interest to the US, because they're claiming that from China to the US, one of these nuclear weapons can get there within, or one of these ballistic weapons, sorry, can get there within 20 minutes.
No, I mean, some of the weapon systems we said were at cutting edge. How many they've got, how quickly they can use them, whether we can count them is actually more complicated. We do know that when they first tested the hypersonic missiles, for example, this was regarded as, this was very, very challenging indeed. And we've seen elsewhere, certainly in the war in Ukraine, this kind of to and from, this dynamic of new weapon systems being produced, and are looking for some form of way of either countering them or matching them. And so we can also expect, I suspect, a sort of another arms race between us. And that is then the real challenge for the West. Are we prepared to match those weapon systems and to defend ourselves, and also perhaps to assert our influence in parts of the world where the Chinese want to push as well?
Well, one of the things that horrified me was the idea that they've got robot wolves.
Yeah, I saw.
Robot
I saw those, but it's a very stark sort of reminder of some of the challenges we've got around AI, and automatic robotics and everything go with it. And we really do not have control across the world of those sorts of weapon systems. The hope and intent is still that what they have is what they so-called a human in the loop. So you may well have drones or some kind of automated system that can operate by themselves, but there should still be a human controlling them. What if it isn't a human controlling them? What if we're in a situation where effectively they're given a mission and set off by themselves and nobody's controlling them? That, I think, is something horrific which we need to think about.
And that is definitely coming. Just before I let you go, Simon, we know that Zelensky's meeting tomorrow with the company of the willing, or whatever they call themselves, and America's going to be there as well. And so that's happening tomorrow. They're going to be talking about protecting Zelensky and Ukraine should a peace deal be reached. We know that Putin has offered Zelensky to go to Moscow, which he knows he absolutely won't do for security reasons. But interestingly, there was a map spotted behind somebody. This is an image that we got from the Sun newspaper, showing just exactly what Putin is aiming for, and he wants the entirety of the Black Sea coast and Odessa.
Yeah, I mean, we know that everything is maximalist in terms of their demands. I have to say, I rather suspect that either there's been a gross breach of security,
or they did it deliberately.
Or they did deliberately. I think the latter.
Yeah.
They put that quite deliberately so that people would see that. And so when then President Putin shows, oh, actually, of course, this is what we really wanted in order to secure ourselves, but actually we can make do with, Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, on those areas, that shows how moderate and modest we are in terms of our ambitions. So I think this is a classic bit of what the Russians call maskarova, which is deception, which is exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to deceive us as to their real intent, and this was there to be deliberately picked up, so it can create uncertainty in the minds of the West and the Ukrainians as to what their ambitions are from there. It's not that he wouldn't take it. If the Ukrainians folded, he would absolutely take that. But I don't think at the moment it's necessarily a serious operational objective for the Russian forces to be able to clear all the way along the coast.
Well, they failed so far. They in the first couple of months, if not the first year, they attempted to take Odessa.
No, they do. I mean,
and they failed
Odessa,
down to Mariupol.
Absolutely, and of course it's a major defensive location now for the Ukrainians,
and it's a major economic position as well.
Well, it is one of the few remaining
ports.
Strong economic assets that Ukraine has. A lot of their heavy industry, a lot of their mines, a lot of their steelworks are all concentrated east, which have now been taken by Russia. But Odessa is the main grain export port out through the Black Sea, and one of the main means that Ukraine can keep its economy going. So capturing Odessa effectively would turn what was left of Ukraine into a minor rump, almost like Belarus, which of course
it would be practically landlocked. I mean, it would be impossible for it to do any of its, the massive exporting and importing that it does. But like you said, nobody did that accidentally, because they would accidentally fall off a balcony somewhere.
Yeah, I have to say that the balconies and windows in Russia are particularly poor quality.
They need more builders. That's what they need. They need to make sure. And I would have a basement flat if I was in Russia. Simon, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you. Colonel Simon Diggins, OBE, retired British Colonel and Defence Analyst. Quick break. Back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening. This is Talk and it's Petrie, and it's also our competition time. So our biggest competition to date is now live, and we're giving you the chance to win a whopping £25,000, and there are Oasis tickets up for grabs as well. Two lucky winners will win a pair of Oasis tickets when they return to Wembley on the 27th, and plus we're giving one listener the chance to win that huge 25 grand. For all the details and how to enter this amazing competition, listen up.
18 plus, UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win, text the word cash to 83338 and you're in the draw. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission, or you can enter for free by calling 0330 880 3338. All entries must be received by the 19th of September at 9 a.m. This is a TalkSport limited promotion run on TalkSport, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
So there you go. Get involved now, because the 27th of September is literally just around the corner. So that's our competition. Let me tell you what's coming up at midnight, and that is this. Now we're being softened up into having ID cards. It is something that Tony Blair has wanted for decades. It is something that Labour seems to really like the idea of, actually, is ID cards or digital ID. Now, the problem with digital ID, of course, it can be expanded at any point. They can start adding and adding and adding information about you, where you work, who you work for, how much you earn, what your status is with the HMRC, all in one place. Whether you had a criminal conviction, whether you were arrested and then found innocent, whether all of these things can be added to digital ID. And we know that government systems or government design systems or government paid for systems fail. They don't work. I don't trust them. I don't trust them with the security of our details, and I don't trust them having that many details about us in one easy place. Yes, they already have those details, but they have to ask for a court order. If they want to know your bank details or your HMRC status, all of these things, they have to apply for separately, which makes them reluctant to do it on every single person in the country, which is what protects us. If it's all in one place, that's not good. And under what circumstances would we be required to show our ID? Is it going to be a case of every time the police stop us on the street, show me your ID, please? Because that's unacceptable. If it's just to get a job, I've got a passport. You can see that. I don't mind showing you that. If you want me to bring my passport to the hospital when I go for my next MRI scan, I'm happy to do that. No problem with that at all. So why do we need these ID cards? Well, apparently it's going to stop immigrants from coming here because it's so easy for them to get a job on the black market. Well, the black market is the black market for a reason. They don't ask for ID. They don't ask for passports, which they could right now easily do if they wanted to be honest. They could ask for those passports. So these dishonest employers that won't ask for passports as ID are suddenly somehow going to start asking for digital ID. No, of course they're not. They're still going to employ people on the black market because they don't have to pay national insurance, they don't have to pay the tax, and they can pay people below market rate. Just saying. So do you think that IDs would stop immigration? I'd love to hear your view. 0344 499 1000.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you. Just a reminder that Andy Lound will be with us in about 15 minutes time, and then John Boothman, our wee Scot, will be here at the top of the hour to go through the newspapers. But our multi-award-winning entertainment journalist and journalist of many things, looking spectacular, based in LA, Caroline Faraday. I'm digging this hair, Caroline.
Very big today, isn't it?
I love it. I mean, anybody on radio won't be able to. She's gone, what would you call it?
Very curly today.
It's very, very beautiful, as you are always. Now, Caroline Faraday, Bruce Willis. I have such love for that man, and the way his family look after him. It's quite inspirational, isn't it?
Yeah, he's quite this sort of definition of the modern family as well, isn't he? With his wife Demi Moore, and then his wife Emma Hemming, and he's got girls with both of those. But of course, he's the ultimate action man, you know, in terms of his movie career. And so when they actually bravely revealed his battle with dementia, you know, it was a very sad moment, but apparently he is now going downhill rather fast. His family have told the Daily Mail, or a family insider told the Daily Mail, that he doesn't know faces anymore, and that his daughters are sort of quite aware now that you know, it's time to spend as much time with him as possible. Emma, his wife, and Bruce Willis, they also did an interview recently for with Diane Sawyer on ABC News, so like a big sort of one-to-one interview over here, and they revealed then that he's moved into this smaller home where he's got living caretakers, just like a little sort of one-story home, just so that he's got his caretakers there. So he's not even able to live in the same home as his wife and his girls anymore. So it's really, really sad. It's very brave of them to do that in the public eye, but I think very powerful for so many families that are experiencing, you know, what it's like to have a family member with dementia.
Yeah, and they're being really,
like, not only for them but for the caregivers, you know.
But they're being so honest about it, because again, you know, they'd be saying, oh no, we're coping well and it's all lovely and, you know, he's enjoying life. But they're being blunt and honest about it and truthful about it, because this disease is a really nasty disease. Yeah. And I understand that he's lost his voice. You know, for an actor or a performer, has got to be one of the hardest things. And then to start losing faces and things like that, it is a brutal disease for the people around somebody with dementia. I have a younger brother who has not as advanced, but you know, it's very difficult to have a conversation. It keeps being repeated. There's all of these things that happen, and then with dementia, it does suddenly just go downhill, and that is my fear. That when that happens, I'll know that it's going to be very quick.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it sounds like that's where Bruce Willis is at right now. Must be very upsetting. I mean, these people live their lives in the public eye, but they are, you know, he's a family guy as well. He's a guy, you know, clearly has a lot of love for his girls, and they obviously have a lot of love for him, and yeah, it's just really sad. But I think it's that extreme, isn't it? You know, we talk about dementia, but when you see that it really is indiscriminate and can happen to anybody, even this person who was the ultimate action man in the movies, that all of that, you know, that you've just sort of really left as a bit of a shell of yourself. It really is a tragedy. It
honestly, it's so sad to see somebody disappear in front of your eyes like that. It really is. It's one of the most difficult things, I think. And you know, you've had. It was his wife? Was it his wife? It was somebody else who said, I'd almost rather they had cancer than dementia, because at least there's hope. with some
Yeah.
cancers. There's a journey you can take, there's a battle you can fight, but with something like this, there'll be millions of people who recognise that.
It's just a cruel.
Really cruel, and like you said, indiscriminate, completely indiscriminate. Well, I wish them well, and of course she's got her book out as well, hasn't she? That is doing really well. Cardi B, talk to me about Cardi B.
Cardi B, the rapper. She's such a colourful character anyway, isn't she? It's a very colourful way of talking and colourful way of presenting herself. So there was this trial going on, a lawsuit filed by a security guard, and she gave evidence in it. So there was obviously a lot of interest because, number one, she's high profile, but number two, she's quite an entertaining individual in the first place. Anyway, she was accused of assault during an incident in 2018. She was cleared of that. It was a $24 million lawsuit. So she won't have to pay any damages to this security guard. Listen to this. The security guard basically she worked in the building where Cardi B's obstetrician's office was, and Cardi B was pregnant at the time but didn't want to, hadn't revealed that pregnancy, and so Cardi B said that this woman filmed her going to the medical officers. There obviously was an argument, but Cardi B denies that there was this physical altercation. The security guard said that she alleged that Cardi B cut her cheek with a 3-inch fingernail and spat on her, and then said that that required plastic surgery. And that it cost her job. Now listen, 24 million for a little scratch on my cheek. Had she won that, I'd have literally been like, scratch me now.
Yeah. I mean,
these lawsuits are ridiculous,
they are.
aren't they?
It's America, isn't it, though? This is what happens. You open the door to something and then they kick it open and it expands and expands. It's ridiculous.
You know what? I thought that, because I've lived here now, 12 years, right? And I always thought that thing would go, oh, everybody sues everyone in America. And I thought, will it be as bad as that? Honest to God, it is crazy. Their court system is so overloaded with just ridiculous claims of this and claims of that and all this kind of nonsense. It's just what everything ends up in court.
Yeah, I mean, that is no way to run a society. And it will only get worse, of course. And these claims will get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the judges, probably with her case, they looked at the sum of the claim and went, this is ludicrous. So they don't do themselves any favours.
I mean,
yeah.
Even if there was any, even to take the security guard's claims at face value, the sum put upon it is ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly that. A couple of grand, and she might have won. Who knows? There's a new editor of American Vogue.
Yeah, now this is important because Dame Anna Wintour, of course, is who that character
She's
that we
so
all know,
famous.
Bob,
yeah.
And Devil Wears Prada's based on her, and she's such an iconic figure and has really shaped the way that Vogue has gone forward. Well, she stepped aside as the editor-in-chief quite recently, and a new editor has now been appointed. She's young, she's 39 years old, Chloe Malley, but she's sort of a little bit of Hollywood royalty. But it'll be interesting to see sort of where that takes this very influential fashion title in a time really where people aren't buying magazines anymore. They're not doing it, and Chloe Malley had been running Vogue.com, running the website. So it does suggest to me that they are looking far more towards their digital content. And I believe that what she sort of wants to do is only really bring out a copy of Vogue that are like special souvenir editions rather than
in
just
print. Right.
Yeah, rather than just the regular print version, bringing that out on time.
And also, these magazines are so expensive now. It's like buying a book.
And they're heavy as heck. And who has time to read them? But anyway, they are still very influential in terms of fashion, and being on the front cover of Vogue is still such a thing.
One day, Caroline. One day. We'll be there.
I'm good with it. Yeah, she's the daughter, she's the daughter of Candice Bergen and French film director Louis Malle. And she grew up splitting her time between Paris and Los Angeles. Her father passed away when she was 10. And then she'd sort of worked, when she started working for Vogue, she was a freelance writer. And she's almost like that iconic scene, where she went in looking boring, you know, where
Yeah.
in the beginning, where she went in, she said, you know, I was pretty hesitant when I was first interviewing, she said in an interview, and I wanted to be a writer more than an editor, but she was seduced, she said, by the Vogue machine. Anyway, rose up through the ranks, hosted their podcast, and then became the editor of Vogue.com. And secured, you know, various sort of things. But one of the things she secured was this interview with Lauren Sanchez, who ahead of her wedding to Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos. And there was always this sort of rumor that scooted about that Anna Wintour, that was sort of the final straw for her, seeing Lauren Sanchez on the front cover of, because she wasn't really up.
Yeah, she wouldn't be
really where
classy
she saw
enough.
that magazine going.
No, that's not the way she saw it going. But Dame Anna's not leaving the picture completely, and she's keeping her office and her pottery collection. That's staying.
Yes, she's still going to be there. Who knows what her influence will be, but still there, kind of overseeing things. I mean, the contacts that woman has is just worthwhile, and obviously, you know, all the events and everything else. So,
well, she's become an absolute icon herself. I mean, everybody knows what she looks like. She turns up at all these red carpets, and everyone knows her name, even if they don't know Vogue. Lovely. You deserve to be on the front cover with that hair. I'll have a word with Chloe.
They'd all be resigning.
Caroline, thank you so much. I'll speak to you soon. Caroline Faraday, award-winning journalist based in LA. Quick break, and then we're heading off to space.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, and a very good evening to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And coming up at midnight, we are going to be discussing those ID cards, which we're being told will curb illegal migrants. Apparently it's a draw here because people can just work, get a job. Yes, they can get a job on the black market because they don't check ID, and they won't check these IDs. I can't see it making any difference whatsoever. But do you support the idea of IDs if you think that it might curb migration? Or do you think that this is just a really convenient moment in history where we would do almost anything to stop the boats in the numbers that they come over? So that's the question for midnight. 0344 499 1000 is the number that you're going to need to take part. And coming up at the top of the hour, John Boothman will be here from Scotland to go through the newspaper front pages. But right now, it's our favourite spaceman, Andy Lound, space expert, joins me. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you, Petrie?
Good. I'm extremely well. I can see behind you the really beautiful image if people are watching on YouTube. It's stunning. Is this to do with the total lunar eclipse on this Sunday, 7th of September?
Yes, it is. Yes, behind me is a lunar eclipse taking place, which is a beautiful, where the moon goes beautifully red. It's where the Earth gets in between the sun and the moon, as opposed to a solar eclipse, which is the other way around. The moon gets in between the two of us. And what can happen is then, of course, the Earth's shadow falls across the moon. Sunlight is scattered, the blue light is scattered away, and the red light is in fact bent towards the moon, so the moon then glows red with the effect that you have with this bending of the light. And depending on the conditions in the atmosphere, the moon will look anything from a very pale red to a deep blood red, which can be quite exciting as well. And we actually get the chance to see it. Unfortunately, it's not the best. We don't get to see all of it. It'll be the moon will be rising while it's in total eclipse, so it'll be rising as the sun sets. The moon will be rising, and therefore you'll actually start to see the moon in eclipse. Looking at, make sure I get the times right. This is the time for Birmingham. It's not going to be much different from further south, of course. Changes a bit further north. 1952. You should start to see the eclipse will actually end, the full eclipse will actually end, and we will actually see that here. So it'll be rising in eclipse, but we'll actually see then the shadow disappear all the way till about 5 to 10 when the penumbral eclipse ends itself. So it's a good chance if you can get to see the horizon, be able to look down on a bit of high ground, look down, you'll be able to see the moon in eclipse, weather permitting, of course.
Yeah, that's always a question at this time of the year, isn't it? I'm just thinking while you were talking about that and looking at the images there, what on earth would our ancestors have made of this? You know, to see the moon being red. I mean, it must have freaked them out.
There are a lot of cases in history where people are quite terrified. It happened during a battle at one point, which caused the battle to actually stop, and actually led to a peace agreement. because
if only it was that simple nowadays.
If only it was that simple. Yeah. Interestingly enough, of course, when you start when I did my studies in astronomy, one of the things they do is in fact point out to you that the Greeks did actually know what a lunar eclipse was. Which was quite interesting. They actually understood.
But they were quite an advanced civilization, but before that, you know, even.
It is interesting because if you look at the line of sight effect, you can see the sun is at one end, we're in the middle, and the moon is at the other end. And you can physically see that. You're standing on the Earth, the sun's over there, the moon is over there. It doesn't take a big jump of the imagination to work out what is going on, strangely enough. And of course, you can see the Earth is actually round, which is quite also an exciting thing, because you can see the shadow of the Earth crossing the moon, which of course you can see the curve of the Earth crossing the moon itself.
Well, that'll upset the flat earthers, won't it? That'll do that. This is also really exciting and for me inexplicable, but obviously not for you. But there's asteroid Bennu contains stardust that's older than the solar system.
This is a very important discovery. They found that Bennu and a couple of other asteroids appear to have been the remnants of a bigger body that actually broke apart during the very early days of the solar system. But what's also interesting is that because they've been able to sample some material from Bennu and bring it back to the Earth, and analysing it has been absolutely staggering because they're actually finding the material that's in there, some of it is extrasolar. It's material that's drifted through space into our cloud of dust and gas where the solar system actually formed itself, and some of it is actually on this asteroid, and some of this material is actually a lot older than the solar system. You're actually able to analyze this material, and let me get the size right. These pre-solar grains, material before our sun actually formed, are smaller than 1 micrometer. So they're very, very tiny indeed. But these actually give you, if you analyze them, you can find the signatures of the nuclear reactions that form the them in the first place, which tells you what type of stars form this material. The stars that form this material predate our solar system by a long way, and those stars probably no longer exist at all now. They've totally gone, because that's where all this material came from their explosions, their distribution of material. So we're actually looking at the very remnants of stars that exploded billions of years ago. That material, dust and gas, ended up forming our solar system. And the fact we're able to grab hold of some of this material now and analyze it gives us an indication of what material was there before our solar system actually formed. It's a truly staggering piece of research.
Well, I mean, it just bends my brain. I just can't fathom it.
It's just wonderful. This is where science really becomes really interesting. It's a detective story, analysing this material and finding that our solar system is full of material, not just that was simply material from the dust cloud, which then formed around our newborn star, but from material from a long distance away, which came in. And we were talking about, of course, the other last week about the asteroids and comets that have flown past through our solar system from interstellar. It looks like interstellar dust and material is passing through the solar system all the time. It's a regular event.
I just struggle to understand why physics was so boring at school, because if there'd been a teacher like you, I would have loved it.
It is down to the quality of the teacher. I have
Honestly,
to say,
it was the dullest thing ever. But I'm so fascinated by what you're talking about and the sort of measurements and how that works. But well, I just wanted to stick a pair of compasses in my leg when I was.
I know. Mathematics is the same. Mathematics often taught.
I hated maths as well.
And I think mathematics is mistaught. I think they should consider mathematics as a language. Now, you speak English very well. You're a very good, journalist. You do your work well. But in English, you have a set of symbols, commas, colons, semicolons. We have the same sort of thing in mathematics. We have different symbols just to represent something. The other thing is we have a shorthand. You do shorthand probably as part of your journalistic course. Yeah. And you have shorthand in science, and those shorthands simply mean different letters mean whole numbers. It's just a shorthand for it. So that's simple. In English, you have rules, for instance, for how you structure your language. But in English, what can you do? You can break the rules. In mathematics, you can't. The rules are fixed. So in theory, if you treat mathematics as a language, it's easier to understand than English.
Yeah, I mean, again, I agree. Maths and me, we were not friends at all. Just before I let you, I wish you were my teacher, although you're not old enough. But before I let you go, complex organic molecules found in a planet-birthing disk.
Yes.
So life is out there.
This links actually to the Bennu story, because what we're finding on Bennu as well is quite important. They've been looking at analysing the molecules, complex molecules that exist around a new star forming area. What's interesting, they're finding complex molecule systems, and this is usually about 5 atoms, which includes carbon, forming together, shows us a complicated system. This includes something called ethylene glycol and glycolonitrile. Now, these can actually eventually lead to the formation of the building blocks for DNA and RNA. The interesting thing is they're forming around cold systems of dust and gas, so they're actually coalescing together. When ices come with them together, they only need a little bit of heating, and immediately you start getting these complex systems, which means, quite importantly, even before a star has started to heat up and shine by its own light, these molecules are already forming. So we used to think these formed when the star started to shine, with all that heat and radiation kicked off all these chemical processes. Not true. They're already there. And then when the star shines and starts to get warm, and all this material is already available. This material, of course, is flying through space then. So our entire solar system, before it even got stuck, before the sun even began to shine, may have been bombarded by material, the building blocks of life itself, scattered on the asteroids, which we talked about. These asteroids then, as they're whizzing around, the sun begins to shine, they heat up, more chemical processes take place, they crash into the planets, distributing this material, and on Earth, of course, it's spread to create organic chemistry. And what's fantastic, they're finding it now in the cold interstellar gas and dust. So the universe must be full of the building blocks of life itself.
Well, I hope there aren't other human beings anywhere, because there was enough trouble on this planet. But Andy, thank you. Andrew Lound there, space expert. Papers next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, it is great to have your company, and with me, I'm thrilled to say, is John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. I've missed you, John. It feels like I haven't seen you for ages.
Yeah, a few weeks, I think. Yeah.
It's too long. We're not letting that happen. We're not letting that happen again, John. Right, before we get to the papers, as usual, I've picked a story from the day that I find interesting, and this one is the migrant curbs could mean digital IDs for all. Now, Labour has been trying to get us to have ID cards for a very long time. I remember discussing it when I was a very young broadcaster. Well, not that young, but you know what I mean. Is this an excuse, or will it make any difference?
I don't know that it'll make any difference. I mean, so I suspect, the way you describe it is probably not an unreasonable way. I have to say, the sort of ideas that we are talking about happen in lots of places around the world. I don't particularly have the objection to these things that others might. I understand the difficulties with them, but we live in a modern society. We need to be able to identify people for a whole variety of reasons. These ideas can carry very important information, including health information, a variety of things. So I'm not, dead against it as some people might be.
I am.
And why is that?
I tell you why. Because I don't trust governments. I don't care who they are. With technology, for a start, they've all failed every single time, and I don't trust them with that sort of information all in one place. And the trouble with digital IDs is they can be expanded to include absolutely every single piece of information about you. And we've seen what happens when governments want to exercise control over their people in China, where the identification process in China will literally condemn you to a world in one village, and not be allowed to move out of that village if you, for example, disagree with the government. And I think that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and I do believe that governments who have that much information and have that much control will just glory in using it.
I'm not quite that pessimistic about the world, and maybe not quite as pessimistic about governments either. I just think they carry lots of information which I think in any situation would become useful to the individual, and useful to the government too.
That's my worry. Useful to the government, and if it's a digital ID, what's to stop them from tracking it?
Look, I mean, you know, we're kind of well on the road to this anyway, whether it be passports, driving licences.
They're different.
And the rest.
They're different. They're one piece of information. Your passport is one piece of information. Your driver's licence is another piece of information. It is not beholden to us to supply somebody who wants to stop us and see us every single detail about us. If the police have a suspicion I've committed a crime, it is then up to them to find those details, not for me to supply them.
I hear what you're saying. I think perhaps, though, much more insidious, right, are things like facial recognition cameras.
Oh, we'll have both.
And the fact that they can track people all over the place. I think there's big issues with those. Maybe not bigger issues, but you know, if all these things were introduced at once, then perhaps I could see your point. But I just think there are advantages as well as disadvantages to this.
But they are expanding at once. Facial recognition, supermarkets are now using it to stop shoplifters. You know, people are using it in private companies, and there's no legislation around them. There is no protective legislation around private companies using facial rec. That is a disgrace. AI makes all of these things a lot easier, and if you tie that in with an ID card as well, and both are expanding at the same time, where is our privacy? Where is our right just to be?
We're not having this conversation, obviously, in any kind of vacuum. You know, I mean, Lidl down the road probably holds more information about me and my habits and what I do than maybe even the government, for goodness sake.
Yes, but what if the government had that? What if the government had that information and the doctors had that information, and then they could stop you buying things that you shouldn't be buying because they're bad for your health?
Well, I worry, right, that, you know, that Amazon has more information, that Google has more information about myself, my habits and everything that I do than perhaps I would worry about the government.
But if they could get hold of it, then they could control it. Anyway, we are going to agree to disagree with this. I shall, you know, over a bottle of scotch, I'll convince you, I promise you. Right, let's have a look at the papers. We've gone with the Chicago Sun-Times for Thursday because this is a huge story in the United States at the moment. Donald Trump, potentially illegally, is going to be sending in the National Guard to a Democratic city, Chicago, citing he's going to go in there and clean it up. He's going to get rid of crime. No Republican city has yet been mentioned, even though Gavin Newsom has pointed out that in many Republican cities, the death rate, murder rate and crime rate is sometimes 300 or 400 times greater than that in Democratic cities. What's going on in America?
Look, the Chicago Sun, you're talking about the possibility that this weekend that Trump will deploy National Guard people, federal agents to the city to clean up crime and crack down on immigration, just as he did, I think 3 weeks ago in Washington, D.C. 800 National Guardsmen sent there, despite the fact, as you say, that, you know, local politicians, Democrat politicians, challenge any evidence that crime is up and suggesting that crime is down, and that there are fewer problems than are being suggested by Trump. I mean, there's a long list of other cities that he's threatening: Baltimore, Oakland, other New York City. right?
All
Trump's
democratic
talked about
cities.
all democratic
All of them.
city.
Yeah.
Chicago has, got a bad rap from Trump even in the last few days. He describes it as a hellhole in the world's most dangerous city.
Worse than Afghanistan.
Yeah, the mayor there is disputing all of this. But yeah, this is Trump. Again, I think I said the last time that I was on your programme that we always end up talking about Donald Trump, and here we are right at the very beginning talking about him again.
Yeah. I mean, it is because it's an extraordinary thing to do. I mean, a California judge has ruled that Trump's use of the Guard in LA was a serious violation of federal law. Now, in Washington, it's different because it's not a state, and he does have control. He does have that control to take over and federalize the police. I don't believe he has that control in Chicago, and he actually doesn't have the control to send the National Guard in. He's supposed to wait for a request from the governor or the mayor to say, we've got a serious problem here and we need soldiers to come and help us out. It is an emergency. So many people are seeing this as a completely governmental overreach.
Oh, it's Donald Trump.
Yeah.
This is what he does.
This is what he does, and he will continue to do so, I'm guessing. Right, let's have a look at the Sun newspaper. Oh dear. I mean, listen, if I was a betting woman, I'd have put money on this blowing up. I mean, it was just so obvious. Why do politicians, you're a political journalist, why do politicians think that they can just blag their way out of something when they know that we're not going to let it go?
Look, this story, I mean, this is an amazing story. It's not just the Sun, it's just about most of the newspapers tomorrow morning is talking about Angela Rayner, 3 pads, reminiscent of John Prescott's 2 Jags, but 3 pads in this case. The Grace and Favour house that she's got in Whitehall, this £800,000 house that she's bought, on top of the other house in the constituency where she represents. I mean, for a start, I just think that what will stick about this story with the public is the fact that really she has admitted that she avoided paying 40,000
40 grand.
40 grand in tax to the HMRC, but the fact that she's buying a house at 800,000 on top of another house is also something that I don't think will particularly sit well with the public. But it's politics, you live by the sword and you die by the sword. But
that's the thing, right? So the moment that it was revealed that she'd bought this flat, because she bought it a few weeks ago or months ago, she must have known that this would happen. I mean, that especially these days, that you don't get away with it. And I know that politicians, when I first started off in this business, politicians had that sort of 5-day rule, didn't they? They thought, well, if it burns out in 5 days, we've got away with it. So they would hold fast, hold tight. Nobody would threaten anything. Nobody would say they're going to resign. Nobody would cry. They would just hold fast for 5 days. Those days, I think they still believe exist, and they don't, and they haven't for at least the last 10 years.
Look, despite the fact that she's done an interview tonight, we're not quite sure who the advice that she got initially, who that advice came from, which was, she's later now admitting that advice was wrong. So there's still some detail that's missing there. But, she has admitted that she failed to pay the tax. And, the big question now, zero excuses, says the Sun, will she survive? And I think if she can make it to the Labour Party conference, which I think is in the 5th of October, then it's possible she can survive. But That's a month away, and despite the Prime Minister's support, despite the fact that she's very, very popular within the Labour Party, it's going to be really, really difficult. I mean, it's a personal crisis for her. It's a political crisis for Starmer, who's standing by her. You know, we came back to Parliament a couple of days ago. It was a reset and not a reshuffle. He was hoping that things might get a bit better, and here we are again, the housing secretary with a housing problem.
I mean, honestly...
But both Starmer and Rayner are going to have to watch simply on the basis that, you know, one, she can be accused of hypocrisy because she was the sleaze buster that attacked...
Well, she used to attack everybody else about non-payment of tax.
Nadeem Zahawi is the guy that people talk about. Starmer himself, he can be accused of hypocrisy. He didn't stand by Louise Hay, the transport minister he sacked. He didn't stand by Tulip Siddiq, remember, who got into trouble over her aunt's house that she was living in London.
There's still trouble there, actually.
It was Rushanara Ali was the other MP. Was she not involved in a flat that...
Yes, she was the homeless minister.
That's right, she was the homeless minister. So, you know, this is a very, very difficult situation now. And, you know, I don't know, if I were a betting person, difficult to tell, because the one thing that she's got, a couple of things she's got, is one, she is hugely popular in the Labour Party
at the grassroots,
and Starmer may not wish to, you know, risk getting rid of her. That's why I say, you know, she needs to get to that conference. She's talked about her family. I think, you know, that'll play well with, you know, some people. Where she's tried to explain this away. But look, the simple fact of the matter, the bottom line, the centre of all this thing, is that she's admitted not paying 40 grand in tax.
And so this is the thing with me, when I look at stories like this, it's not just a case of accidentally not paying tax. It seems that her primary residence, where she declared her primary residence was switched, so that the flat in Hove would then be her primary residence and therefore not subject to this extra taxation. That is not a mistake. Listen, I've bought and sold properties throughout my life, and my lawyer will say, okay, right, this is what you owe. Here's your tax bill. This is what you... There's no ambiguity. There's no mistake. There's no advice. Unless that advice is switch where your primary residence is and we can do something on the stamp duty. That was advice if it was taken as opposed to advice given. And it's the hypocrisy of do as I say and not as I do. That's what's unforgivable here.
Oh, you would have thought that the Housing Secretary, of all people, might have had some inclination as to what the rules would be and how that would be applied.
Well, you've got a lawyer that tells you that. You don't get away with it.
You shouldn't forget also that this ain't the first time that she's been in a row over housing, because before the general election there was a row about, guess what, paying tax, this time capital gains tax, on a former council house that she had bought back before she was an MP and sold, and there was a row about how much tax she should pay over that. So she's in a very, very difficult place.
Very. And should be. Frankly, because I am sick of this hypocrisy. I'm really bored of it. You know, like, you know, Keir Starmer, one of the richest men in the country, having free suits given to it. I mean, it's just all a bit whiffy. I just don't get it. And look, I've got no issue with Angela Rayner as a person. I think she's, you know, Northern Bird done good, and that's her selling point, isn't it? Like Keir Starmer keeps going on about it as much as he went on about his dad being a tool maker. So it's that whole, you know, with Labour you can rise stuff. But I do believe this is unforgivable. Whether she goes or not, I'm with you. I think she's got a very good chance of staying, but I think it's unforgivable.
Well, I mean, two things. One, I don't think, I'm not sure really, the whole working class woman left the school at 16, had a baby, worked in care and all that stuff. It might work for Labour Party activists, I'm not sure, that it necessarily plays as well with ordinary members of the public. And the other thing is, of course, what we've got to see and what we will see next is what, is it Laurie Magnus, the guy's name is, who's the ethics advisor, has to say about all of this before Starmer can then decide, right? But, given our popularity in the Labour Party and given the to use that Scottish expression, the sugly peg that Starmer's created for himself, it makes it quite difficult, for him to possibly get rid of her. And the other bit of that, of course, is that, what does it do for her chances, because she's right up there as being tipped as a possible future Prime Minister? Is that now out the window? Could she, well, in another scenario, possibly leave the government and then come back later on? But this again, is just a huge piece of more than unfortunate timing for what's been a pretty hapless time for the Labour Party in government.
But it reminds me, in a way, of the expenses scandal, the brilliant work by the Telegraph. I'll always credit them with that because it really was brilliant work. And a lot of some MPs did go to jail over it, but most of them were told, look, it's you didn't break the law, you didn't break, but it's not within the sense of the law, right? It feels like that again, that she might be excused by some fluke of some advice that she wrongly took or whatever, but deep in your heart, it's a different thing, isn't it? So is it that the public will forgive that, or will it be like, no, I'm sorry, I don't care if it's still within the rules, you shouldn't have a duck house?
No, well, a duck pond.
A duck pond with a duck house, a duck house.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's what I'm wondering, is the public are thinking, is like, it may be within the rules, we don't know, right, to be fair, we haven't seen all the evidence, as you said, but it's not within the sense of it, is it?
Well, and I'm in kind of two minds about some of this, in the sense that, on the one hand, I think that, most politicians go into politics, with the best of intentions, and then they kind of end up in kind of funny places like this. And I think, sometimes the public has a very short memory, so things do get forgiven, right? On the other hand, when it's, for some politicians that just doesn't happen. Once they get stuck with a label, it sticks with them forever. And I just wonder whether she'll just get stuck with this now.
Yeah.
And if, I think I heard somebody earlier on saying, is she a lame duck or a dead duck?
Yeah.
And that's what we'll have to see in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and we will. I mean, I think it's fairly egregious, but we'll find out. I'm going to take a very quick break, John, and we'll be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, this is Talk and it's Petrie, and with me is the wonderful John Boothman, political correspondent, Sunday Times in Scotland. John, the Daily Telegraph, as you rightly said, most of the papers are carrying this story at the moment. Again, a headline like this, oh, I didn't pay the right tax, but it's still not my fault.
Yeah, well, again, she's, in this case, she talks about the bad advice that she got and how that's been revised, having got more advice. She tries to explain the circumstances, and they're quite complicated circumstances about one house, the Ashton House, Underline House, being under in a trust. And then there was a divorce, and she doesn't want to bring her family into this because, and I certainly hadn't heard this before, she's got a 17-year-old disabled son who had been disabled really.
I think it's cerebral palsy, wasn't it?
Yeah, from an incident at birth. So, she's had to bring out a whole load of information that she herself said she didn't want to reveal to the public about
I
her
don't think
family.
she had to really reveal that, though. I mean, again, John, I heard this, I've had to reveal this. No, you didn't. We weren't asking about that. We were asking about your tax implications. We weren't asking about your son. Why have you told us about your son?
Well, I think this is partly, her defence of what she did. On the other hand, you could argue, as you do, right, that we didn't really need to hear that bit of explanation. But again, I think that's the thing that will stick with the public. She didn't pay the cash.
Yeah, and like that, so we're sorry that she's in that position with that child. I am with anybody, but nobody asked you to reveal that. That's irrelevant. We want to know which house you declared as your primary residence. Is it your primary residence? And if it isn't your primary residence, then why didn't you pay the right tax? That's it. We didn't ask about anything else. Interestingly, though, John, on the Daily Telegraph as well, this piece here by Melanie McDonough says hiding misjudgment behind her class won't wash with real workers, which absolutely reflects what you were just saying.
Yeah, look, I think, look, people expect... people are very, very cynical now about politics and about politicians.
I wonder why.
And there was a time when that wasn't the case, and people expect better. And they're entitled to expect better. And I think what this does, the end result of this, right, isn't just that it will damage the Labour Party, it damages politics for everybody.
Completely.
And again, depending on what political view you have, some people will argue that all that this does is drives people away from the traditional political parties into the hands of people like Nigel Farage. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that as a kind of objective fact. That's what what it does. And again, the other bit of the story you spoke about, the longevity of stories and getting through 5 days. This story is just going to go and run now.
And there'll be more and more information as well coming out. People will be digging. They've got their dog with a bone, and they're going to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig. And she should have known that.
Yeah, well, I think that's right. I think today is probably some kind of attempt to maybe draw some kind of line under it by going on the television and doing that interview, but that's just not going to happen. I mean, the fact that it is literally on just about every single newspaper front page. It's leading the news on all the channels tonight. It's going to be over breakfast tomorrow. I mean, that's us into Thursday. You can bet your bottom dollar that already the Sunday newspapers are all over this story like a rash.
Of course they are. There'll be pages and pages of tax experts and legal experts and, saying, how could this advice have ever been given? How could it have ever been taken? Just because somebody gives you advice, it doesn't actually mean you have to take it. You are responsible responsible for taking that advice once it's given. So again, but it's still not my fault. Whose fault is it then? I mean, this is the point. You know, I heard an interview earlier on today with Liz Truss saying it wasn't my fault that the economy crashed. That was the Bank of England. You know, so like, please just shut up and take responsibility for what you do.
I mean, even for those supporters of Angela Rayner, who I suspect, you know, in the last couple of days might have been thinking, you know, this is all got up by the right-wing press and it's the media and all that kind of stuff, you know, for the die-hard lefty Labour supporters who would support Angela Rayner and perhaps think that she should be, you know, she's prime ministerial material or whatever. You know, these people will now be looking at this stuff and going, oh, she didn't pay the money. Right, and you know, it's basically, you know, sows the seeds of doubt, right, amongst a whole load of people. Look, there'll still be a big bunch of people who love Ange, as they like to call her, but this is pretty damaging stuff.
But we also know politics, John. You may love somebody, but if they're on a boat that's sinking, you're off. So a lot of these people will turn their back on her like that.
Well, I don't want to name names, but I suspect that some of the people who are out there today, right, are supporting her, you know, through gritted teeth.
Absolutely.
Right? Because that's the place that they have to be in at the moment.
Yeah, a couple more days and they'll be going, Angela who? Sorry, I've never liked the woman. I mean, just because they're all just in it to save their own skin, which is another reason that people are cynical about politicians. Look, John, let's take a quick break before we come back to the Daily Star, which, as we know, is news with a wink.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And right now on Talk, it's Petrie, and with me, John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. John, the Daily Star, we were just discussing there in the break, they've got their serious head on this morning, a little bit, because I want one of those badges. Angela Blamer.
I think the badge thing's brilliant.
The badge is phenomenal.
Angela Rayner, just blame everybody else, right, as we've been saying. It does make the point, to be fair, which is one of the points that we haven't spoken about, that basically that she said that she nearly resigned. Teary minister, I nearly resigned, it says there. So yeah, well, take that for what it is.
Yeah, exactly. But this badge, it says, after Rayner blames her lawyers and Starmer blames the cops. And it's a badge that says, Labour approved, just blame everybody else. I hope there is a free badge for every reader, because I want one of those. The Mirror. Let's have a look at the Mirror. Angela Rayner is on the front page. But again, I did everything in my children's best interests. All parents do, but we still have to pay our way.
I saw that Nadeem Zahawi was out there having a go at her on Twitter earlier on.
I would if I was him.
Yeah, you know...
I mean, not that I support him. I'm just saying, you know, I would be doing it.
You know, it's again, this is all rather curious, bringing out all the family stuff, as you said earlier.
Yeah, no one asked her.
The Mirror, of course, which would normally be a big supporter of the Labour Party, the fact that it's still in the front page, it might not be the glaring, blaring big headline and big story in the front page, but you know, even for the Mirror, it's still there.
Yeah, they have to. This is a decision that they have to make, isn't it? We can't be seen to be supporting this actually, because our readers won't like us support. There are some things that just are not supportable. But the main story, of course, on the Mirror is fury over cover-up. Andrew accuses a family, we will keep fighting. Now, this is the family of Virginia Giuffre, who accused Andrew of having her trafficked and of inappropriate behaviour with her. He denied it. Mummy paid her millions of pounds. It never went to court in America. But the family are not letting this go. Now, this is after there was I think it was a congressional hearing today where many of the victims went in to Congress and told their stories about what had happened and the abuse that they had under Epstein, and that nobody's been on their side. They've had no justice. They've had no guilty party, and that must be just devastating for these women.
I think these women had the right, and certainly would have expected that Trump, having promised before the election that he was going to publish all of the Epstein files, that would have happened, and that's what their demand remains. You know, we have that terribly tragic case of Virginia Giuffre, you know, no longer with us now. Of course,
suicide.
A memoir coming out, I think, in October. You know, famously reached an out-of-court settlement with Prince Andrew, I think, in 2022, worth, I think,
17 million, was it?
So, I don't know, 17 million maybe dollars or 10 million pounds or whatever. Yeah, so, you know, they're going to keep on fighting. These women are going to keep on fighting. And again, this is big trouble for Trump. It's the one story that seems to one story that seems to have stuck around. It won't go away. It was here, you know, that when he was in Scotland a few weeks ago. He's with us, of course, in 2 weeks' time, lest we forget, for that state visit. So we'll be hearing more of this story as time goes on. And I don't know, where does that one end up? Do we eventually see the publication of this? The Democrats, you know, are like a dog with a bone about the whole story. They want the publication of all the files as well. It's just a story that really won't disappear.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Congress has just come back. They were broken early, if you remember, to stop a vote taking place, to a vote to get all of these files released. I believe on Tuesday 30,000 pages were released, but these have all been seen before. Then there's nothing new in these pages, so it was a really weak gesture. This will not go away. There will be a vote. And my understanding is that every Democrat, of course, is going to vote to have these released. But they only need 6 or 7 Republicans. And there are many Republicans who are equally upset by the fact that nobody, not one person, has paid the price for the trafficking and the sexual abuse of these young women.
And equally upset that you know, when Trump before the election said this was all going to happen, you know, that echoes throughout the whole of the Republican Party, who would be using it on the stump around the country, right, all supporting this idea. And then as soon as it happens and he gets into the White House, then nothing's to happen. And we've seen already, you know, a whole series of things happen in order to try and stop it, including, you know, what you mentioned there in Congress. We've seen is it the Deputy Attorney General going to see Ghislaine Maxwell in jail? We've seen her being moved to a
soft
softer
touch,
regime, but no deal was done, of course.
No.
But, you know, and you know, we get to a stage, if this story just keeps going and there isn't a great deal of movement, and it starts to become a real election issue. But you're right, the soft underbelly of all of this for Trump is the fact that his own supporters, the Republicans, some in the Republican Party, want these files published too.
They do. I don't think we'll ever see them. If I was a betting woman, I'd put money on that we won't ever get to see them. Right, The Guardian, again, a teary picture of Angela Rayner. So we'll leave that story there for now. But a couple of really interesting stories underneath that. We shouldn't be policing culture wars, says Sir Mark Rowley, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner.
Look, this follows in the back of Graham Linehan, the Irish comedian and scriptwriter, famous for scripting Father Ted, which we all used to know and love. He was arrested coming into the country by the Metropolitan Police the other day, and basically arrested on the basis of 3 tweets that he put on social media about trans people.
And it's played right into the hands of Farage, of course, who's over in America at the moment, saying we're like North Korea. I mean, what an idiot. Sorry.
Mean, you know, I have to say, right, whilst some people might have some sympathy with some of the points that he was making, I mean, he has just such an ability to go completely over the top. At what point did we become North Korea? Well, you know what, Nigel? At no point did we become North Korea. In North Korea, hundreds of people, right, are in prison camps on the basis of their opposition to the government in North Korea. There is no social media unless it's government approved in North Korea. North Korea is one of the most repressive regimes in the world. So, going to stop it?
Yeah, please just stop with the hyperbole, because it is utterly ridiculous. It's like when he describes London as a hellhole that you can't walk down the street in. It's like, I do that every day. Shut up.
You know, if there's anything, and you know, look, he's had a remarkable success.
Oh my God, I will never take that away from him. No.
He was here in Scotland last week, and he was very impressive at a press conference that I was at that he held. It has to be said. He's not as popular in Scotland as he is in the rest of the country. You know, he's running high in the polls, 30%. Pushing 30% round about that, you know, 10 points at least ahead of everybody else. I just wonder, you know, if there is one thing that's going to be a problem for him, and it's quite interesting that there was a Democrat in this congressional committee that he appeared in front of today who said that he was a Putin-loving free speech imposter and Trump sycophant. Now, it's his association with Trump. I don't think his association or anybody's association with Trump as we go forward is going to be as popular as well, perhaps he thinks it is.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. This is also an interesting story. US sends Russian asylum seekers back to Moscow. Again, the timing of this interesting after that, the Axis of Upheaval meeting and, you know, Putin going and holding hands with Modi, very uncomfortable image, and sucking up to Xi, which he has to because Xi is funding this war. You know, but do you think this is just coincidental that Russians are being sent back, or is this Donald Trump saying, right, kick them out?
Well, two plane loads of Russia. Well, I just think he's kind of kicking everybody out, right?
Yeah, well, that is true.
And that's, you know, I think it's part of that. Notwithstanding that, I mean, you know, one of the things that, you know, this is where, you know, politics in a global level, there are real consequences to the actions that people take. all of this stuff that Trump does, whether it's tariffs, whether it's his attitude to other countries, would appear to be very, very popular amongst his own support base in America, but actions have consequences. And what we're seeing now in China is a situation where Xi Jinping, Putin, Kim Jong-un, 20 other leaders of countries, right, today, all at that huge military parade, all kind of laughing up their sleeves at Trump. In fact, Trump himself has been on Truth Social saying that that these people are conspiring against America. We saw, as you said, that uncomfortable scene of Modi walking along the street hand in hand with Putin. Look, the world's changed, and America is not what it was. China is not what it was either. And for a whole authoritarian it is, right? It's not a democracy, that's correct. But there's a whole series of countries around the world looking at China, and they might not like the authoritarian leadership in the country, but they see, for example, in the last, 20 years, that 800 million people or something have been brought out of poverty.
Yeah.
Right. And they see an American president who's come in, who's laying out, sometimes it changes by the day, who's punishing countries by putting tariffs on their economies, even poor countries, some of whom have been allies or supporters of the United States. And then, maybe we shouldn't wonder when we see things like that today, that demonstration of strength and that demonstration of all these other countries being in China, that maybe some of the things that Trump does have these kind of consequences.
Yeah, huge consequences, and I don't think he really acknowledged that. But the concern for me is that the servicemen included in the number that have been sent back to Russia who were deserters, and I'm afraid we probably know what will happen to them when they get back to Russia, and that's why they sought asylum, is so that they wouldn't be put to death. But there seems to be not one jot of care that somebody is going back to a very, very dangerous situation.
I don't think that's something that particularly enters into the calculations that Trump makes, to be honest.
But that's the whole point of asylum, right? If you want to desert an army or whatever, I don't know. It's heartbreaking. There's just the idea that having any empathy now, empathy is a weakness, I think, is again coming out of America. Let's take a break. John and I'll be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and with me is John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland, and we're looking through the front pages of the newspapers for Thursday. I've skipped to your sister paper, John, the Times, because this story here sent a shiver down my spine, because when it comes to dictators or people that you don't particularly like in the world or you think are a danger to the safety of the world, the one thing that is certainty, apart from for Angela Rayner, is death and taxes, right? So we just think, well, one day they'll die, right? These old men start wars, young men fight them, right? So you think, well, these old men, the natural course of the world will take place and these people will die. However, there was a hot mic moment earlier on between Xi and, I believe, Putin. And they were talking about living to 150 years old. Tell me how they're going to do it, John.
By virtue of repeated organ transplants.
Great!
Now, one has to ask the question, where do these organ transplants...
I don't think they care anybody. They'll just grab
these organs come from?
Oh my God.
I think Putin's, 73, which is the average life expectancy in Russia, I think, for a male. So, he's only lived then, half his life or something?
Well, I think that average has been brought down by the war to probably about 25. Right. But yeah, for the rich. But yeah, this is terrifying. That these Putin and Xi talking about living to 150 with fresh organs. I mean, like you said, who the donor? I don't think they're going to be willing. I don't think it matters either. It's extraordinary.
And we can throw Donald Trump in there as well, and remember also that younger than all three of them is Kim Jong-un.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. And they could all live. They could live. It's just such a horrible thought. They're saying in this hot mic moment, they were talking about biotechnology is continually developing. There was some inaudible conversation before the translator concluded human organs can be continuously transplanted. The younger you live, the younger you become. The longer you live, the younger you will become. So they're probably going to take the heart from some teenager or something and give it to one of these old men, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, well, or maybe a pig by then.
Actually, that will save organ transplantation, I'm telling you, because pig organs are so similar to human organs, and they're already using pieces of liver and things like that to save lives. So pigs, yes. But
look, you have to ask the question, does anybody really want to live to 150 years
well,
old?
these people, why wouldn't they? All the money they've got, all the control they've got, all the power they've got, all the ego they've got. Of course they want to live forever.
Again, it's just very curious to think that that's the kind of thing, right, that people in those positions are talking about.
I imagine that is all they talk about. How am I going to steal a few more years from some poor sucker whose heart I'm going to rip out of them and replace my own with? It is. But the fact that this is just a little chat between two authoritarians.
Two 75-year-old pensioners walking up the road.
I know. And like I said, these old men, your time is done. Go, just go. That's the only safety net we've got, really. Mind you, Kim's daughter is apparently worse than him.
I saw, that she was accompanying him on his trip to China, and that she's now what she would be, I think, the fourth generation in the same family,
Well, she may never get that job, of course, if Kim's going to steal hearts from babies or kidneys or whatever it is they're going to do. A horrifying hot mic moment. I think that's going to give me nightmares for such a very, very long time. But yes, I've heard rumours about Kim's daughter being way more, I don't know if the word is evil, but than him. There's some nasty rumours about her.
I don't, you know, part of the interesting thing about Kim Jong-un was that he was educated for a time in the West. I don't think the daughter has been, but as you say, I think Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, and now the daughter. But again, you know, only a year ago, I think we were talking about Kim Jong-un's sister as being the person who was the heir apparent, but that seems to have moved on.
She seems to have disappeared in the way that family members tend to in these authoritarian regimes if they get too close to the crown. But anyway, that's for another 70 years away, John. You and I, the likes of you and I, won't have to worry about that. We'll be long gone. The Independent, again, going with Angela Rayner, admitting that she didn't pay that 40, this isn't pennies, 40 grand's worth of tax. The Metro, again, a no-brainer. Badenoch insists Deputy PM should surely be sacked. But that's what you do, isn't it, in opposition? You call for everybody to be sacked over everything.
I think there was also some comment that perhaps Kemi Badenoch could have been a bit more effective today in terms of pursuing this. So, you know, well, I'm back to that point. I suppose that for a whole load of people looking in, it drives them away from the traditional parties. Yeah,
I'm with you that. And if people do fall into the arms of the other parties, it'll be directly the responsibility of this sort of governance, I'm afraid. Astonishing picture on the Financial Times showing China's roar. The faces of young soldiers, Chinese in the PLA, the People's Liberation Army. I mean, that spectacle was extraordinary, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was watching that tonight, and you know, it was an extraordinary parade of military force. There were, you know, they were talking about underwater drones, which was, I was like, underwater.
Is that not a submarine?
Well, and basically, you know, unmanned, you know, underwater vehicles as weapons. They were parading.
What about the wolf robots?
The wolf robots, yeah, but they were parading. What else did they have?
Terrifying.
They had laser weapons. They were parading as well. But I have to say, you know, it was an astonishing display of precision and stuff as well. Watching, you know, these men and women marching down
it was like
Tiananmen Square. It's astonishing.
The choreography and the discipline and the precision, as you said, it wasn't human. It was extraordinary. It was amazing, although slightly terrifying, to watch. I mean, it was extraordinary. And if you contrast that with Donald Trump's birthday parade, when all the soldiers were sort of out of step, and we were told that was deliberate, and there was a squeaky wheeled tank sort of going past, and there was nobody in the park watching. You know, in China, of course, everyone would have been told to be there, and there were tens and tens of thousands of people there. But still, what a remarkable sight. Like I said, if not terrifying.
Look, you know, it just, you know, it shows the way the world's changed. I've only been to China once, and
never been.
I have to say I was completely blown away by the centre of Beijing. You know, having been to the great cities in America when I was younger, you know, a lot of which were built, you know, post the Depression, you know, the skyscrapers and everything else, which was a different level there. You know, you go to Beijing, and I'm talking, it's a good number of years now, 2007, 8, I think I was there. The centre of, well, the main centre, the main drag in Beijing is just like absolutely incredible and modern. And you know, you come out of the airport, gigantic modern airport at Beijing. There are 7 ring roads between the centre of the city and the airport. There's the maglev train that runs along the side coming out of the airport that goes to Shanghai. You know, China's spent huge amounts of money driving railroads and roads, you know, not just
I mean, John,
China.
this is the thing, isn't it? That with the number of people they've got there, and nobody's without a job, and everybody's got work. John, your job is done for today, so thank you very much indeed. It's always such a joy to see you. John Boothman, a political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. Right, coming up between you and me, it is the phone-in, and it's a full hour of just us having chats and conversations, points of view, all welcome, of course. But I want to know from you about this push, really, for again, for us to have ID cards, this time digital ID cards. And apparently these ID cards are going to save us from these high levels of irregular, illegal migration to this country. It's going to stop the boats, apparently, although ID cards across the EU, that hasn't stopped millions of people arriving there, has it? So we'll discuss that in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. It is Petrie, and it is also Thursday now. Only just, but it is Thursday, the 4th of September. And what I want to talk to you about this morning is the idea, more than an idea now, unfortunately, that we should all get digital IDs. So PM spokesman said that identification cards, which they aren't cards, right, which again, if they were cards, it's a different thing altogether. They're digital idea, could combat illegal workers in the UK's black economy. All British citizens could be issued with digital ID cards under plans being considered by Sir Keir Starmer to tackle illegal migration. The Prime Minister's official spokesman said that ID cards could combat illegal migrants working in the black economy amid a public backlash over the surge in channel migrants and asylum hotels, as well as benefit fraud. Let's just examine that for just a moment. So we're all going to get ID cards on the flimsy, an extremely flimsy idea that this will combat illegal workers. Will it? Because at the moment, when you go for a job, and there will be many of you who have done so recently, whoever you are, wherever you're working, you have to supply identification. Like, I don't know, when you go for a doctor, when you sign up to a new doctor, right? You have to supply ID. We already have to supply ID for various points in our lives. So to get a job, employers are required by law to make sure that you have the right to work in this country, right? They're required to do so, to make sure you have the legal right to work in this country. And they don't, the less, well, the more nefarious employers already don't do that, right? So we'll all have ID cards. And it won't make a jot of difference to the employers who are hell-bent on employing cheap, illegal labour. Wow, are they suddenly going to go, oh, well, now it's an ID. We'll ask for that. It is so bogus. It is such a lie that I can't believe anybody believes it. I literally can't believe anyone believes the lie that we're being fed. What's happening here, in my view, is that they've hit upon fear in this country. Oh, get rid of them, stop the boats, we'll do anything to stop the boats. So they're selling you an ID card or digital ID on the basis that it'll make you more secure. And that's what governments do, and that's why I don't trust them. They create a problem, and then they offer a solution to that problem, which actually is a solution that they've wanted for decades. I don't trust them. I don't trust them with digital ID. I've already got a passport. You want to know who I am? I've got a driver's license as well. I can show you. And sometimes you have to, right? When you go for a job, because they're required by law to make sure you have the right to work in this country. And if they do employ you and you don't, they get fined for it. So it's in their interest too. But those employers who already don't ask for that ID are not going to ask for ID when we're forced to have them. Tony Blair has wanted this. I mean, honestly, I remember talking about this. I can even visualise the studio I was in. Oh, God, it must have been 17 years ago when they were trying to do this the last time. And what they were talking about then was holding up to 700 individual pieces of information on each person on these digital IDs. So, for example, it would be your health records. It would be your legal records. It would be if you'd ever been arrested. It would be possibly your fingerprints, possibly your DNA, possibly some form. If it's digital, it can be used for tracking, of course. And what they'll say is, well, you know, if you've broken the law or you've had too many points on your license, what we're going to do is we're going to put a tracker on you so that we know what you're doing, because that'll keep people safe. It's always easy to get things past a people who are scared or who are worried about something. And as for, oh, we're going to stop this. Oh my God, it just makes me so cross. We're going to stop benefit fraud with these IDs. What? Why aren't you stopping benefit fraud already? Why aren't you checking people's ID already? It's not that difficult. We all do have identifying numbers where we get them from birth. It's possible to stop people using the NHS because we have NHS numbers. I mean, when I phone up about the NHS, I have my name, which is an identifying feature. My date of birth combined with my name is a really good identifying feature. And then I have my NHS number, and then I have my hospital number. That's already 4 pieces of identifying information. They don't need any more than that. And when will we be asked to provide these digital IDs? You know, if we're all carrying them, will it just be random police coming up to you and saying, "Could I see your ID, please?" Always the problem with these things is there is an expansion, because governments can't resist it. They cannot resist it for your health. To make sure you're more healthy, we're going to connect your digital ID to your shopping cart. And if you're a bit overweight, none of that chocolate for you. Or if you're an alcoholic, for your safety, we're going to prevent you from buying alcohol. And all of that seems reasonable. People go, that's a good idea though, if you're an alcoholic. Well, I'm afraid if you're an alcoholic, that is still your personal choice. As I was told when my brother was drinking himself to death, they told me that if he was standing at my door with a knife in his hand, trying to cut himself, they could help him, but a bottle of gin in his hand, and he's quite entitled to kill himself in that way. I was literally told that. How much control do you want any government to have? And don't forget, it's all reliant as well on there being a benign government, which I don't believe any of them are, because ultimately control is what they want. All the new cars from now on are going to have black boxes in them. So they're saying, well, they won't be switched on yet, but they'll be there, and they track. And with those black boxes, what will happen is once you break a speed limit, you'll just get an instant fine sent to you through the post. Again, people will say, well, that's good, you shouldn't speed. But also they're tracking. I don't know how anyone can not see this for what it really actually is. They have created this problem, whether deliberately or not, I don't know, but this problem has been created by ineffectual and dumb governments. All of them. Started by Tony Blair because he wanted cheap labour and he wanted Labour voters in this country. He opened the door. It was started by Tony Blair. So he creates the problem and then demands that we all have this digital ID to fix the problem. I don't know how it fixes it. Maybe if you do, you can give me a call. I would love to hear what you think about this. I mean, as you can tell, I'm very opinionated on this matter. To be honest with you, I always have been. I've always been very protective of my privacy, and not because I'm doing anything wrong, but actually because I'm not doing anything wrong. I have the right to privacy. There's only those people who break the law who don't have that right. I don't break the law. I have the right to privacy. Give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you straight back. And you can message as well. Put the word talk and then your message to 87222. And you can also WhatsApp a message to that phone number and send a voice note if you want to. That number again, 0344 499 1000. David said, we already have digital ID, passport and driving licence. I'm nearly 65 and I'm not going to get any further ID card. I don't need to prove who I am to anybody. And that is the point. We don't have to prove who we are. If the police suspect that you're breaking the law, it is up to them to prove who you are and to prove that you broke that law. We don't hand over a digital ID with absolutely every single piece of information. And they will start off by saying, oh, it'll only be your date of birth and your name. But because it's digital, they will just add and add and add and add. Mark my words. And if you want to see how far governments go when they've got that sort of control on you, go no further than to look at China, where people are controlled, even as to what kind of job they can have, if they can go in and out of certain areas, if they're allowed to move home by the point system that is on their ID. That's where we're heading, I promise you. because governments can't resist it. Look how far they went during COVID. I mean, if any example you want to see about, oh, we got a lot of control, oh, we can do whatever we like now because everyone's scared. And they were all partying it up at number 10. No, I don't trust them. I do not trust any of them. Kevin is in Hull. Hello, Kevin.
Good Thursday morning, Petra.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. In fact, I nodded off, to be honest, and I didn't expect a phone call back, so I'm first in the queue.
Yeah, you are today. I don't know why. You must have said something really good.
Yeah. All I said was that I love the green blouse with the snow leopards on. I haven't seen you wear it since.
Oh, no. Oh, with this leopards on. Oh, yeah, no, I haven't. I looked at that this morning and thought about it. So I'll wear that next week.
Bless you.
Right, what do you think about ID cards?
I think it's misdirection, and I personally think it's not possible. Logistically, I don't think it's possible.
Well, I guess they'd have to make us all upload some app, and we know how good they are at apps, right? £35 billion spent on that COVID app that didn't work. So we would have to upload an app, but they could fine us for not having it. That's what they'll do.
Oh, fines upon fines,
Yeah, they'll just fine us for not having it. They'll say this is now a legal requirement. If you are asked to produce your ID and you can't or you don't, you will be fined. That's what they'll do.
So who's going to ask for your ID?
That is the part of the question that hasn't been answered or asked. Nobody seems to, because that's what I want to know. Who has got the right to ask for our ID? Now, like I said, when you set up a new bank account, you have to provide ID, right? If you get a new doctor, you have to provide ID. If all of these things, and we already have to do that, and we've got passports, and we've got driver's licenses. When we go and vote now, we have to provide ID. Most of us have got that. I don't know who else could ask for it, and that's what worries me.
Well, is it like shop owners? You want to buy alcohol? You want to buy cigarettes? Are they going to ask for it?
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, a policeman stops you and asks for your ID. I'm not being funny. The policemen around our area walk in twos, and I haven't seen one in a year and a half down my street. So it's...
But you don't have to provide the police with identification of yourself unless they suspect you're involved right then in the middle of a crime.
Right.
And people, this is the thing, is that it just becomes overreach. When do we have to show this ID? And if we're carrying it around with us all the time, how secure is it? And if your phone gets stolen, all of that information on you is handed over to a bunch of criminals.
Yes, and I believe even your chip and pin for your bank account holds a lot more information than what we realise.
I'm sure it does, but I can suspend my chip and pin. I can cut it up. I can get rid of it if I want to. Right? So, I had a message from my bank the other day saying there seems to be a problem with your card, we're sending you another one, which then the puppy chewed. So I'm in trouble with the bank. But anyway, but we have more control on those things, right? If you don't want to have a digital footprint with your shopping, for example, you can take cash out of a machine, and you can go into a shop and you can buy what it is that you want to buy, right? So if you're having an affair and you want to buy, some lingerie for your girlfriend or boyfriend, then you can do that without anybody knowing that that's what you've done, right? So there are ways that we can get around the sort of oversight that there is on us at the moment, that we willingly walk into. But with an ID card, I'm fairly certain we won't have that right. Yeah,
totally agreed. I think at the end of the day, it's too much. I mean, I'm a bit of a simpleton, but it costs what does it cost the government or us to keep people in hotels, and then police defending the hotels, and then we've got to have this ID card situation. I just don't think it's.
And it won't stop. It won't stop them. I mean, I've been looking at the numbers across Europe, where most countries, apart from Denmark and I think Ireland, has a voluntary ID card. But most countries across Europe have an ID card situation. They've still got illegal migrants, hundreds and thousands of them. Germany, millions. So they're telling us that if you get an ID card, it will stop this. It'll stop these illegal migrants. It won't. It hasn't anywhere else.
But the thing is, as I'm saying, is okay. So we've got an ID card, right? What happens to the person that doesn't have it? What about the paperwork, or a policeman stops somebody at a car wash and asks for his ID card, and they haven't got one? I mean,
will you be able to arrest them straight on the spot?
Is it worth it?
Yeah.
It's time and motion. It's and then there's forgery. I mean,
of course there is, and if it's digital, probably a 7-year-old could do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, will the government subcontract this mission to do this?
Of course they will. And then who else has got your information?
Yeah, and the thing is, at the end of the day, what does it cost us?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're suggesting that even though the COVID thingy cost 35 billion pounds for that app, this will only cost about 400 million. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. They're lying to us.
You could put a B on that amount.
Without question. Yeah. Without question. You're absolutely right, Kevin. It will cost so much more, and it will achieve nothing.
Where do you get the money from? Us again?
Yeah. Yep, tax rises. And this is all instead of actually dealing with the problem. They're trying to distract us, as you said. It's like, this is the answer. Just happens to be the answer that they've wanted for decades.
Yes. I think the thing is, at the end of the day, I'll say this truthfully, when my granddad died, he said, we fought for king and country to stop being invaded. And in peacetime, we've been invaded. Well,
I don't like the word invaded, because I think that detracts, that really waters down the invasions that those soldiers and those people of the First and Second World War had to put up with. But I understand exactly what you're saying, Kevin. I just don't think this is definitely not going to stop it. I mean, it hasn't anywhere, literally hasn't anywhere else. So what makes us different? We're being sold a lie. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you. And we're talking about the introduction of digital ID cards for every single person in this country, and that's apparently going to stop people coming across on boats, or at least reduce the numbers, which it hasn't. I'm going to say this again until I'm blue in the face. It really doesn't seem to have made any difference to any other European country. We are not the only ones with this problem, but we are amongst a very small number that doesn't have ID cards. So if that doesn't tell you absolutely everything you need to know about this scam, I don't know what does. But those who argue in favour of ID cards claim that stopping illegal migrants from getting work would reduce the motive for coming here in the first place, and it would also prevent people from accessing public services if they're not entitled to them. Right, I'm going to go over this again. Already, there are laws in place that require companies to check your eligibility to work in this country, and you have to provide ID. Also, in order to claim public services, you usually have to have your, I don't know, or NI number, national insurance number, some identifying thing like your name, date of birth, place of birth that they can check. So if these checks aren't being done, that's the fault of the processes already in place. Tighten up those processes. Make it impossible for somebody who is not entitled to public services to get those public services. I thought that's what you were already supposed to be doing. I literally, knowing only about my own life, you can't move without providing your ID in some form or other. Date of birth, name, hospital number, NHS number, national insurance number, passport, driver's licence. I think we've got enough. All of these things are identifying factors, and if they're not being used, and they will not be used by employers, if those bad actors already refuse to ask for some form of ID and proof that you're entitled to work, it's not going to make the jot of difference if somebody's got this ID on their phone or not. And by the way, how many phones are stolen every day? Thousands in London alone. How many phones are stolen or lost? It's nonsense. It's a lie. Graham is in Peterborough. Hello, Graham.
Good evening, Petrie.
Good morning, actually.
Oh, oops, my bad. My bad. I'm sorry.
That's all
It's been
right.
a
I'll
long
let
day.
you off. I know. It's fair enough. It's so close, isn't it, to evening? I'll let you off. What do you think of this?
It's complete bonkers. It's one for the fairies. It really is. Just go back to the Second World War. If you were sort of captured as a prisoner, as a POW, all you had to give was your name, rank and number.
Yeah.
That was good enough.
Yeah, and it's enough because that's an identifying bunch of information.
That's it. And in current circumstances, like you have said, it's your national insurance number, your health number, your driving licence, your passport.
I mean, at birth, you are given an NHS number.
Yes.
That follows you through your entire life. How anybody is using the NHS without the right to do so is a complete joke to me, because already it should be only if you've got your NHS number, right? Or if you're a newcomer, you've got a temporary number or whatever, right?
But also sort of look at the NHS with all the fraud where a person comes in, uses the NHS services, and then clears off and leaves us the bill.
Yeah. And that, if they provide if they can't provide an NHS number, then they have to provide an insurance number, and therefore we wouldn't be ripped off. The thing is that all of these things are already so obvious, but they're not being done. It's almost deliberate. They're saying, look at the wastage in the NHS, look at the fraud in the benefit system, and you're going, well, that's your fault.
Yes, that's correct.
Sort it out.
So correct.
Yeah.
They are so lazy and indolent and
incompetent
at not dealing with their own faults and mistakes. And the other thing I would like to say, if it's got Blair's name on it, walk away.
I'm with you on that. I always keep saying I wish that man would just shut up and go away and spend his billions. But do you think that they honestly believe that we are so stupid that we will fall for this? That we will go, oh yeah, no, let's have ID cards because that'll stop those blooming immigrants from working if they're not allowed to, and it'll stop them getting benefits.
Oh, come on. It's already going on. Look at all the people doing food deliveries, stuff like that.
Yes, because those employers, and they will still do it, because they're getting cheap labour, they're not having to pay tax, they're not having to pay national insurance, they're not having to pay for healthcare or anything like that. They will always look for cheap labour on the black market.
So why impose upon us Brits the imposition of what can become something really dark and nasty?
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's always that, isn't it? It's a thin end of the wedge.
Or it's horrible. It really is. And our beloved government just cannot see it.
They honestly think we're mugs. They do. I genuinely believe that they sit around with their enormous wealth, even though it's a Labour government, they've got no idea what's going on in the real world, and they laugh at us. I genuinely believe that. They think, oh, they're a bunch of mugs. I tell you what, they're so upset about immigration. Let's get these ID cards through.
No, if you're going to give any ID cards, give it to the guys that are turning up on the beach.
Yeah.
Not us.
Yeah.
They're the ones causing the problems.
Well, but again, it's because governments have failed, one after the other, to deal with this situation. I don't even blame the immigrants. Of course they're going to come. Of course they're going to come, right, if it's that easy. But it's not easy because of ID cards. It's easy because every single system that was designed to keep this country a certain way has failed.
Yeah, the other thing is, can you trust this government to handle your details and your privacy?
I wouldn't trust any government. I wouldn't trust any government. I don't care who they are.
Something today that sort of, well, it was just a small thing, but it blew my mind. A lady that was working part-time to support her family. She was a single mother with 2 children, and her car broke down and it needed repairs. She was also in receipt of benefits, which is fine.
Yeah.
She's sort of working there to... She got decency and honesty within her, and a sense of responsibility. And her grandfather sent her money into her bank account, and the recipient, the lady that was working to bring up her family in a true and honest way, received a message: you have received this amount of money from an unknown occupant or donor. Therefore, we are deducting that money from your benefits.
It's disgusting. And also, they should have no... Bank accounts are private, right? They're supposed to be private. But as soon as you go on benefits now, they can snoop. And that was done almost quietly, where they used to have to apply for a judge to be able to snoop into people's bank accounts. Now, if you receive benefits, you have to agree to them snooping into your bank account. It's disgusting.
It is absolutely abhorrent. Oh, Petrie,
I'm glad I'm old, you know.
Well, no, you're not. You're probably younger than me and look a lot better.
Thank you. But look, I'm very distrusting of governments, and I'm very distrusting of the fact that they love control. Like I said, we don't have to look far back in history in this country during the COVID crisis to see how they loved the control they had, and the police fining people for having a cup of coffee while they were sitting on a park bench. That's the sort of control that they cannot resist. They love it. They lap it up, and that they can't help it. They love it.
Yeah, and they have now moved on to new pastures.
Yeah.
You raise a flag on some,
and you're not allowed to do that.
The national flag, then wallop. You get 4 burly policemen jumping on a little.
That's what I'm saying. Any sort of this sort of level of control is only the beginning. They love it. That, like these black boxes that we're all going to have in our cars. And I know that the people who manufacture black boxes have been lobbying the government for about 30 years to get them to do that. And now it's going to happen, and that's freedom gone.
I can understand when it's sort of controlling those that have just passed their driving test for insurance.
But again, that's voluntary, and it can be removed. Yeah.
But when it's spread out to the whole sort of population, then evil is sort of rolled out.
Yeah, they can track you, they can fine you, you go over the speed limit, you don't even have to see a cop, you go 1 mile an hour over, that's you getting a fine. You stay in a parking bay too long, by 1 minute you get a fine. All of these things will be able to be done with AI, and like I said, and then it's all people going, well, I can't go out, it's not worth it. And then they start to control where you can go.
Like I did my shopping today, and I was looking at the price of food on there, and I was also thinking of these cards, and you present your sort of ID card at the checkout, and they said, Graham, sorry, you have bought too much meat. We are going to fine you, etc. You can have no more meat for the next 2 weeks.
That's exactly my concern, and if they link it up with your medical records.
Oh, geez.
Well, that's what they'll do. That's the suggestion, is that your medical records will also be included in your digital ID. Why? Why your records?
I sadly sort of had a health collapse less than 1 year after I retired, and I'm now fitted with a pacemaker. And my pacemaker sends details off to the hospital as to what's happening.
How much exercise you take, and
well,
I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. But I know we're heading that way. And the generations behind us, Graham, have been gaslit, and they've been groomed into accepting it.
Oh,
so they will accept it. They will accept it.
I have like my son and his family. There's one older grandson and a younger grandson and a younger granddaughter, and the 2 youngest ones are so far against what is happening now. But sadly, Bill is a little bit wayward, should we say. He's drifting off to the left. But the other 2, they know what's going on. They understand how we are being beaten down.
Yeah, I think, like I said, you create a problem and then you come up with a solution that you've always wanted. That's what governments do. They create these problems and then they say, well, but we've got a solution. And it's like not a solution at all. Graham, lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to take a very quick break at this point, but I will be back.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. This is Talk and it's Petrie here with you. And we're talking about the ID cards for all of us in this country, which is somehow magically supposed to curb the number of migrants that come to this country. A couple of messages here. I agree with you on ID cards. Big Brother would love to have all that info on us, from John. Yeah, all in one place as well. Just makes it super easy for them. Joel said, the whole point of allowing illegal immigration and being so incompetent that you create civil unrest is that so you can bring in digital ID. That's how important it is to these Davos and WEF minions, not just not just Labour, but the last government too. I agree, it's all of them. They need digital ID in place for digital currency, which will be total control of you and I. There's always a motive, right? Joel is absolutely right on that as well. Yeah. There's loads more messages. I'll read those in just a moment, but I do want to go back to the calls. And Sue is in Spain. Hello, Sue.
Hi, Petrie. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Fine. It's a few weeks since we spoke, and I watch your show every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, except when you were sick.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope you're better.
Much better, thank you. Well, I've got a voice. I didn't have one. So that's how bad it was.
Difficult to do your job.
Yeah, really. But thank you for being a listener and a watcher. I really love that.
Okay. But tonight, a lot of what you're saying, I do agree with.
Mm-hmm.
However, when I moved to Spain, we had to apply for residency, and we were given a large piece of A4 paper, which then became a small paper card, and we have to carry that with us. But because it has no photograph on it, it's not a valid ID. Now, you mentioned that everybody has passports, everyone has driving licenses. I beg to differ on that.
Well, most of us do, but I know what you're saying. But even with voting now, they came up with another form of ID that you could just apply for. So everybody can apply. You could apply. I don't have problems with a card ID because I carry my driver's license, right? So I don't have an issue with a card because that's got very limited information on it. It's when it's digital and that information can be expanded at any point to include anything for our own good. It's one thing. When I was in Germany, I worked in Germany for quite a long time. I too had a paper, and I had a paper ID, as you would have done, right? So, I had no issue with. I don't even remember being asked to provide it to anyone. But But if you were and you didn't have it, then you got a fine. So I had no problem with the paper ID. That's not an issue for me. It is the idea of an ever expanding digital ID.
I agree with that, but we don't even know what they're going to be taking on it. Now, 4 years ago, unfortunately, I was mugged by knife point.
Oh my gosh!
Nearly lost my thumb, and by law, I should have identification on me, and that would have been the passport had it but not been for Brexit. Because our laws state that our cards of residency have to have our thumbprints on them, fingerprints, our residency number, and a photograph.
Right.
Now, that costs us €12 to apply and get. So, yes, that was stolen. But if I'd had my passport on me, it would have cost me a lot more to get a new passport.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, people, you know, the voting thing, you know, where you have to provide identification here now. That lots of people say, well, I don't have ID. So they set up a scheme where you could get a little ID card that you could present. And again, I don't really have a problem with that. It's the idea of digital ID, and it's because of what's going on in places like China, where the control that they have over you through that identification process and the expansion of that can literally stop you from leaving your town.
Yeah, but hopefully we would never get to that stage.
But I'm not prepared to live on hope. I don't trust governments. Look what they did during COVID. I don't trust them.
Well, luckily I had COVID in Spain, and not personally, but our restrictions were even more stringent.
Mm. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, and also, but you know, with the Spanish Parliament partying at, you know, their residences and laughing at us.
No.
Mm. See, I just know that people in power love control. The ideal world is a completely controlled populace. Look at North Korea. Completely controlled. They can't do anything. They can't. There's no way. There's nothing that they can do without oversight. And governments love that. They love it. And I just don't want to be a part of a society where that is a necessary thing. Like I said, Sue, with you and your paper ID card, I carried one in Germany. I had no problem with that at all. It's the same to me as having a driver's licence.
We had to change ours after Brexit 5 years ago because it didn't have a photo on it.
Yeah.
Now, my biggest difficulty in replacing when I got mugged was my driving licence, which entailed a trip to Malaga. It was an awful long thing, so I don't carry my driving licence.
No, because you don't need to, and that's the other thing. If you've got this ID card, fine.
Yes.
You know, you literally don't have to carry anything else, do you? I mean, you can use that to go across borders as well within Europe. So it's brilliant. Yeah. I mean, I completely accept that.
And I don't mind them having my fingerprints because I'm not a criminal.
Yeah.
If I go to the post office to pick up a package, I could be anyone. If you go for a job, you could use anyone's NI number.
Well, that's tricky. Because if you go for a job nowadays, like I said here anyway, the companies are legally required to check ID. But the fact that some of them don't do it is not going to make any difference if you've got an ID card or not.
No, but you will stop. People can be stopped and checked for them at any time. Now, I agree with you that there shouldn't be so much data on it. Mm. But do we know what the data is going to be?
Well, they tell you one thing and then it expands. I mean, at the moment, they're saying it'll be your name, date of birth, driver's licence and medical records.
Yeah.
Which is too much. It's already too much.
Well, that for me would save me carrying 3 separate cards. But my social security card means I can go onto an app, I can request a renewal of prescriptions, and then the GP will call me rather than waste his time when I've been on the same medication for years. And it automatically goes onto the chip in my card, and I take it to the chemist.
Well, we have a very similar system here. I mean, I just recently renewed my repeat prescriptions, and I go onto my NHS patients forum. You go to the repeat prescription bit. You have to, obviously there's ID and everything you have to go through, and then you tick boxes and that gets sent to my chemist. Yeah. So, you know, there's already...
I have to provide my social security number, and the card is called a TIE, to prove that it's me. And if I don't use the normal chemist, they're within their right to ask for photographic identity.
Yeah, I think we don't need to go that far, I think. Because the system, I like the new NHS portals that you can use. It does make life a lot easier and a lot quicker. And they just send them to the chemist. And when you go into the chemist, they say what's your name and date of birth and what's your address, and they check it against the prescription and then they hand it over.
Yeah. But if we go into hospital or anything, I mean, we get a report every time we go to the hospital, a paper report. Now, all my friends and family in the UK, I know that they come out of the doctors, and unless they've had or hospital, unless they've had someone with them, they really don't know what's been done to them.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't really care as long as I feel better. I mean, it's fine.
Well, but
but we've got our NHS number. I've got an NHS number. I've got a hospital number. I've got my name and my date of birth. They don't need any more than that. Sue, lovely to speak to you. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you for calling in about that, because the paper card ones, I don't really have an issue with. I wouldn't particularly like it because I'd forget it. But I don't care about that. It's just a piece of paper. But when it's digital, it's different. I'm going to take a break. Back in a second. Hello, good morning. This is Talk and it's Petrie, and at the moment we're talking about the potential introduction of ID cards digital ID cards for all of us here in Britain, because somehow miraculously it's supposed to stop immigrants from coming across and working illegally. Maxine has sent a message saying, when I applied for my job 15 years ago, I had endless checks and had to provide my full birth certificate plus lots of other proof of my right to work here. Yeah, companies are legally required to do that. And those that don't do it are not going to change just because there's an ID card. I don't know what's gone wrong between then and now, but if I couldn't provide proof, even 15 years ago, I wouldn't have got the job. People can now come over, it would seem, without any ID whatsoever and stay until it's proved they can't be here. ID cards may be a good idea in principle, as it's horrendous trying to prove identity for anything without photo ID, but it will not stop the boats. Starmer is just using this engineered situation to bring in something they've wanted for years. I don't trust them at all, but I think it will happen at some point, unfortunately. Yeah, well, like I said, generations behind us have been groomed into believing that it's fine for everybody to know everything about you, and then, you know, they won't care. Adrian has called from Weston-super-Mare. Adrian, good morning.
Good morning, Petrie. How are you?
I'm very well indeed, thank you. I noticed on my notes you're a first-time caller.
I am first time caller, yeah.
Oh, it's lovely to meet you. Thank you for calling.
Thank you as well. No, thank you. You know what? I'm listening to you and I'm listening to everybody else. And what I was originally going to say is I don't even think it's relevant now because there are so many flaws with this. And it's digital currency. So your bank details are on there. You don't need your bank anymore. You're with this, your account number, your sort code, blah, 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 is all on there. So then you just use your card then to go to the shop and you put it in the slot and it comes out. So you pay for that. But what I'm getting at the moment and what's really triggering on me is fraud.
Mm.
And how long are those cards going to be on the black market, just the same as how passports and that are, or there's clever people out there thinking, yeah, we can do this.
We can fake this app, right? There's probably 7-year-olds could probably fake the app, right?
Yeah. And then if they say, right, well, you need an app, okay, well, my parents can just about turn a phone on.
Yeah.
So, you know.
It's true. And what if your phone is stolen? I mean, phones are stolen all the time, right?
Yeah.
What are they? Maybe they want us to have a chip in our wrist that has our digital ID on it. That'll be the next thing. They'll just say, well, phones keep getting nicked, so what we've done to make it easier for you, to make it safer for you.
All it is, all I see it as is a mobile CCTV camera.
Mm.
That's all I see it as. And I even said to your colleague in that, like, how long will it be before you have to put that card into your phone? Now, where they're doing the age verification for certain things, you know, or prove that it's you, yeah, this is me, and you haven't got to remember 30-odd passwords for everything that you've got. You know, you can put your card into your phone and it could work that way. You could put your card into, if it's got your driving license and everything on there, you can put your card into the car and it can tell that car will start because it knows it's you got your insurance or it's got your tax or blah, blah, blah. So I can see the plus side in that.
In a physical card?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like I said to Sue, a physical card that doesn't have a digital chip in it, I'm happy with.